Peace and blessings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Asia. I am your host, Asia Nasir Shahi, where our mission on this show is to educate the women of our communities and the girls that they are raising. We have part two tonight of a wonderful topic that we started 2 weeks ago, and that is raising healthy teenage daughters. We got huge feedback from that conversation, and we knew just based on the stuff that we were talking about 2 weeks ago with the women that was on the show, we had to come back and have a part two because of the other aspect of raising healthy daughters, and that was the fathers or the lack thereof in their life. So tonight we have two special guests that are joining us. Actually, they are recurring guests of the Conversations with Asia show. So I will introduce the first one, which is Brother Ayoob Abdul Kakur, and he is coming all the way from the ATL, Georgia. So welcome, Ayoob. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm really excited to have you on the show because 2 weeks ago your wife was talking about some amazing things that you and her do with your daughters, which you are. How many daughters do you have? Are you?
I have three daughters.
Yeah, so you're a girl dad, all girl
For
dad,
sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
all girls in your house. And yeah, your wife, Andola, was just sharing some really beautiful things that you and your wife are doing intentionally with your daughters. And that's why I wanted to have you come on the show. So welcome. Thank you.
Shukran.
And next we have our other guest who is a dear friend of mine. I've actually seen him as well in action with his children. And that is none other than Brother Khalil Ismail. Welcome, Khalil.
Hey, what's going on?
Look at you trying to, oh, yeah, hello. So tell those that are watching, how many girls do you have? How many children do you have, and are you a girl dad?
4 girls, no boys.
So I have 2 girl dads on here. So you can't be more expert than that. These are fathers that are in the trenches raising healthy daughters. And so you and I have had conversation, Khalil, about this very topic as it relates to healthy girls. And for those of you who are new to the Conversations of Asia show, I run a nonprofit organization where our mission is all about empowerment of young girls and women. So this topic really hits home for me. It's very special to me. And that's why in 2022, we started off with this topic. But we can't have this conversation about raising healthy teenage daughters without including the fathers, or as many of us, unfortunately, have seen the lack thereof. So I want to ask, either one of you can kind of just jump in and, answer this question. When we were talking last week, we had a behavioral specialist by the name of Sabria Mills, and she was sharing some really great things from infancy, from that dependency stage of raising healthy children, that it starts from there. The dependency, the trust factor, the feeling secure, being able to open up and so forth. And that was from a holistic approach and just starting from infancy and then growing into teenage years, how that impacts them being able to be healthy. And a lot of it was talking about the women and the mothers in their life. And then she mentioned something as it relates to fathers. But before I share that, I would like to ask you, either one of you, why are men so important in raising a healthy young teenage girl? Why do you think that that's so important?
My brother.
Where do I begin, man? Shoosh, man. I think it's actually a deep topic. Okay, so in a nutshell, I'll be short because I could be long, so I'm gonna be short. Just observing my girls ever since they were born, I learned very quickly that they're affected by the male voice, the male action, and the male presence, right? Number 2, I also notice how they're affected by their environment and images that they see and imagery that they see, right? So I could see right off the bat, and this is just the start, that, for me, speaking life, positivity, that they're beautiful, that they are enough, that giving them a foundation of having someone who loves them, who doesn't need anything back from them, helps a lot, because they already are inclined to want to do good by you, right? And you don't want to break that fitra. Like, and that's, and the world is a horrible place, right? So laying that foundation for them, is everything.
What would you say to that, Yayu? Because I really want to share what Sabria mentioned as a behavioral specialist in dealing with the behaviors that come from positive influence and negative ones. You said something very powerful just now, Khalil. I would really like to hear what you have to say as it relates to why are men so important in a young girl's life. And you have 3 daughters. You
Right,
mentioned.
right. Yeah. For me to show them an example of how to be cooperative. When you come together with somebody, it's not forming one person. It's 2 people coming together to work together to basically please Allah, right? That's the ultimate. But then there's other components involved in that along the way. And it's so important for a male to show the daughters what that really looks like with their mother, or their wife, whoever's in the house with them working together. So that way they can have a standard. And so my job, my role is to set the standard to what that looks like. And like Khalil said, set that foundation. Then they can build on it however they want to. But as long as the foundation is solid and it's there, then they have something that's, concrete to stand on, to work on, So I think that's the importance of the father being involved in the daughter's life.
Powerful. So you were saying that a father sets the standard of by watching and observing how the father treats the mother and how he treats his daughters. And then you was mentioning, Khalil, how it sets a foundation, and anything that you want something to build on to be strong has to have a strong foundation. So Sabria said something, as I mentioned, she's a behavioral specialist, and she said something, and I would really like for you to speak to that. She said, when it comes to observation, she said, we as mothers, our daughters, they mimic us as to, what a woman is. So they identify themselves as a woman based on what they see their mom. But she mentioned something profound. She said the relationship that a young girl has with her father is where she identifies her femininity. What do you say to that?
I think that's important. I think that in the age of gender roles and things like that, it's important to basically show them how you're supposed to cooperate in the household. And we have a great example in the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu in that it's not about gender roles, it's about contributing to your family's well-being. So he took on the responsibility of cleaning in the house and doing his own clothes and things of that nature. So just to kind of offset what society kind of shows most women what those gender roles are, is we have a great example in the Prophet, alhamdulillah. And I think that early on you gotta teach your daughters how to have fun with you. You know what I mean? You gotta make it an enjoyable experience. It's not always just about discipline. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you have to show that one to them as well as to your spouse. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to play with the kids, but if you just with your wife and you like, where's my food? Why ain't clean? Why ain't, you know what I mean? Then it's contradictory to each other. Because when they get to a certain age, they're gonna say, "Oh, I gotta expect to get talked to like that," So I think that's what I have to contribute to what Sabria said.
What do you say? Thank you. That was I love the fact that you said learning how to play with them. And it's not all about discipline. That is so true. And I think as women, as it relates to our femininity, me just being a woman, it does. You do. There's a difference in how you expect a man to talk to you and treat you based on the tone that your father has with you. So that's profound. Khalil, what do you say to that?
Yeah, just to add to it, because I agree with everything Ayoob says, I'll just add to it. I think that and it's kind of to go off of what Ayoob said in his last reflection, showing the example of how you relieve the mother, right? And especially, I think in this generation where we're talking about generational curses, and we had this concept, we had these gender wars and issues with men and women competing against each other and all of that. I found that when you can provide, right, and you work hard to provide, and you give that base, you give the opportunity for the mother to be soft, right? Then by extension, right, they see that, and then they see how to also be soft, right? Because we talk a lot about,
That is so profound.
You know what I mean? And I think we lost that in this whole kind of competition thing where everybody's like, what are you bringing? What are you bringing? And it's this, as opposed to, at the end of the day, if we actually listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we would learn, right, that by taking and alleviating some of that pressure, right, as a provider and as a foundation in that way, if your mother, like a lot of mothers today, they got to go to work, they got to be the breadwinner, they got to then come home and then cooking and cleaning, and the guy's asking for X, Y, and Z, right? And she has no opportunity at that point to actually sit down, right, and nurture, right? And then by extension, right, the children don't get that nurturing in the same way because she's got to be a certain way.
So that femininity is lost.
Yeah. And then they have to, because if you are hardened up, even if they see somebody hardened up, right, like whether you're a father or a mother, then they're going to harden up, right? And so when we're talking about femininity, right, by us actually doing the producing that we should be doing, right, as in terms of bringing what we're supposed to bring in, and then being an alleviation and a help and an assistant, as the mother who tends the mother who tends to run the household. We actually, I think that's my contribution to that. And then lastly, paying attention to them individually as individual personalities, right, and then catering to their personality. And we got multiple, I'm sure, just like me, every single one of yours is different in how they are. They're totally different characters, right? And what makes them tick and that type of thing. And so even when you talked about playing with them and that type of thing, how they even want to play is totally different, right? Mm-hmm. So when you pay attention to them and they see you paying attention to who they are, it's another way of allowing them to be feminine.
And just to add a little bit to that, what that produces is peace for the man in the house. Yeah. Which allows him the space to be vulnerable, to be able to do these things. You know what I mean? And because when we out in the streets, a lot of times we have to be hardened and firm and stuff like that. And so if we're doing what we need to do outside the house and we can come home to a peaceful dwelling, then we can relax and do those things that cultivate that kind of relationship with the women in our house.
That touched me. That really touched me, because if we see that, and that just brings me to my next question, because unfortunately there is such a breakdown. There is such a breakdown as it relates to fathers being involved. And I want to ask you too, what do you feel is the breakdown of the father's contribution to a healthy teenage daughter, or to the girls in his life? What do you feel is the breakdown? And so it doesn't have to be just right now. It can go back, generations, because you were talking about generational curses. If that's where it goes, I would love to speak to that. Where do you feel the breakdown is, because we see it? There's so many single parent homes, single mothers, and as you said, they don't have the time to be nurturers. They don't have that, and girls are not seeing men being vulnerable and things like that. So where do you think that breakdown started, and why is it still so prevalent?
Khalil touched on it in saying the environment, right? And one of the things that's changing, alhamdulillah, is that the narratives are being told by people like yourself, to where even if you don't have that example in the house, now with the access that we have, you can get those examples through other people. A lot of times we used to have examples of your uncle and your aunt that were a long time married, or your grandparents that were a long time married, or somebody like that, where now we're more in a digital relationship kind of world. You have those examples, but somebody has to introduce you to those, right? And then you have to continue to basically stimulate yourself with those kind of examples, because the examples that they give and have been given now for the past 25, 30 years is independent woman. You know, through the TV, through the music, through the show, whatever, you know what I mean? And so the environment is crucial, you know, and being able to expose them to these healthy relationships between the fathers and the daughters.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're asking where did the breakdown come from?
Yeah, because I'm looking at it like what you're saying. Yes, the environment does play a role, Ayoob. I agree with you 100%. The music that we hear, it's all about I'm a strong black woman and I'm a this and it's as if though the men doesn't. It's not important to have the men in the life, and that there's not a position and a place for that to contribute to positivity in the home. Where do you feel that breakdown came from, and why is it? Because even with the narrative that we're sharing now and the narrative that has been happening, why do you feel there's still a breakdown of the lack of fatherly presence in their daughters' lives?
I think that started with the breakdown, 50s and the 60s, actually. Black family was the leading family in America. Like this, like a lot of people talk about slavery, but actually our families recovered from slavery, right? But in the 50s and 60s with integration, right, that occurred, and it started with the breakdown of morality, meaning, right, you know, you had men, you know, to be quite honest, who were, you know, going out, you know, even though they kept their families together at that point, there was still a mistress, right? The beginning of the sexual revolution started. This was starting also when people started to not be ashamed of fornication anymore, right? So now spirits are getting corrupted and as such, and these things are happening all at the same time, right? So when you combine those two things, integration was a thing where we as Black people, both men and women, we kind of went after what the white standard of excellence was. So what that was, you know, it wasn't the home, it was the material. It was, I gotta go get my bread. I want to be in even from a prestigious school standpoint. We left our schools where the teachers cared about each other, right? These are things I actually learned from just talking to other people in generations higher than me, right? And we left those things that money can't measure, to chase the things that, you know, that are a little bit more material, thinking that would solve our problems, and it took us backwards, right? So when you mix now no more the moral responsibility. We go back to what Ayoob said. If you actually go back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, at the end of the day, there was a way you could have had, right, your families. If you wanted multiple wives, if you were honest and moral about that, right, then there would be honesty and you would still have respect in the home. But what happened is that as they infiltrated us, we lost respect of our women because we started to sneak and be lying and deceitful, right? Trying to get what we want, right? And the women were allured by the material. Hey, you know what? Good, like the independent thing. Hey, you've been under, you know, the whole white woman suffrage thing was happening, which was not an issue with Black people.
So you're talking about the feminist movement.
Yeah, the feminist movement, right? Which was not an issue with Black people. We were cool with our homes and how they were, right? So they kind of got our women to kind of follow after that, as if their rights were conflated with ours, right? And in the men, unfortunately, we followed our lusts, and then we lost respect for each other. And I feel like ever since then, that's what you've seen. When you're looking now at us fighting each other, we don't have respect for each other the way we used to, because we don't have strong morals and strong discipline with respect to that. So I feel like that's actually when the breakdown occurred. And that means in order to get it back, we have to get back to prophetic morality, right? And get back to prophetic strength when it comes to how we go about our families and honesty.
And I agree with what both of you are saying, because I think when you look at it from, you know, whether you're a Muslim or whether you're a Christian, you know, when you're looking, or any religious faith, when you're looking at it from the perspective of how God looks at it, there was a place for what the father's role was, what the husband's role was, what the wife's role was, and what the mother's roles are. And you're saying that has been deflated by pursuits of either lustful things or material things. And therefore you have fathers that are no longer. So that brings me to a very important topic that we were discussing 2 weeks ago when the women were on the show, and we were talking about how because of the discord in the family, you have a lot of this, you know, a divorce, You have separation, discord, and dysfunction in the home, which is contributing to, as you mentioned, Ayoob, a very unhealthy environment, or, Khalil, both of you said that, a very unhealthy environment. And then now you have the fathers no longer living in the home, and you have bitter, angry women sometimes. Do you feel that that contributes to the breakdown, is no longer thinking of the children, of the daughters, and how the absence of that father is you feel okay because you're a woman and you getting yours because he can't come and I have that power over you because of maybe infidelity or whatever, and I feel broken or hurt. So now I'm going to get back to the one thing that I know you care about, which is your children, your daughters. Do you feel that that contributes, and then how profound is that breakdown affecting our young girls?
Yeah, it's affecting the young women extremely, because the decisions that young women make, sometimes they don't ever recover from them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's, children out of wedlock, which is a lifelong journey, because that's something, you're now bringing a child into the world. And so men have I don't want to say the luxury, but the luxury of being easier forgiven than women when it comes to family and children, because we don't have to raise the children per se, because we don't have to carry them in our womb and stuff like that. And so when the breakdown happens and that ripple effect happens, it could literally change the trajectory of that family for generations to come. Right.
So,
And
mhm.
go ahead.
No,
And so when I know, like, for me personally, right, me and my wife, we have certain expectations and goals and things of that nature, right? And if I was to do something and she was to turn my children away from those things, then the work that I put in is useless. It's almost useless, And so it it goes back to the independent woman thing, because if there is a sense of accountability from the woman's part, no matter what that man did, if
mm,
if the trajectory and the goals that are set for those daughters, especially, because it goes for boys too, but especially for those daughters, then she would continue to pursue that, and she would continue to guide her in that manner. Where,
mhm,
as we see, a lot of people, they do it in spite, So
mhm, mhm, mhm. Khalil, you wanted to add to that? Because
Yeah,
there's another piece to this question that I want to ask.
you're saying with respect to the, I mean, yeah, in a nutshell, you said it. I mean, absolutely, without a doubt, when those emotions get involved, and it makes a person feel as if they're justified, right? And that's the hard part about it, is that everybody feels justified, but the children lose. So I don't really have to add more
Mhm.
to that.
So that brings me to my next question. I mean, we can look at it and say, I did ask the question. I said it. There are, and I'm a woman, and I can speak to that. There are some bitter women who don't allow their daughters to be able to have their fathers in their life. That's one aspect of it. Yes. But for those fathers, I would like for you to speak to those fathers who that may not be the issue. And, I know that the flip side of that, I know there are women out there who do, who, as you mentioned, therefore that it doesn't matter what happened between you and me, we still have children. We still have young girls that we have to raise. We still have healthy girls that we need to bring up. What do you say to those fathers who the opportunity is there? Why do you think they're not? Although they have the opportunity, the mother is not the bitter woman and allowing them to see their daughters, and they're not doing it. What do you say to those men, and as it relates to them understanding, because men watch this show too. So if they're watching right now, I would love for you to speak to them as to, if you have that opportunity and you're not taking it, what is the effect that's going to happen, and how are they contributing to an unhealthy teenage daughter?
I mean, as a person who has, one of my daughters I raised, who is not my biological, right? And from 2 to 20 now, right? And um, I would say that the things that I've observed is just the vast majority of it is pride, right? A lot of it comes from the concept of, hey, you know what, this was mine, you know, or the wife was mine, and therefore, you know, I don't even want to deal with the fact that somebody else is in this person's life. And a lot of it comes from pride and fear, because the pain of that reality a lot of times is too much to bear, which is why it's so important to work on self. Why it's so important to work on self with respect to God, Allah. Get therapy after that, because really it's you know, even in those cases, a lot they don't realize what's happening, right? So they're kind of justifying it. Sometimes, you know, they'll use something small and say, okay, it's the woman who's keeping it away, even when it's not. Like you said, a lot of times they'll still blame the woman. A lot of times, I've seen this many times, you know, dealt with this type of thing, right? Where
you and I both.
Woman, right? Blame the mother, even to the point where, you know, falsely accusing her of things and things like that. I've dealt with it personally, right? To the point where I've had to intervene and be like, nah, you ain't gonna do that, right? Or at least not in my presence. You can do that somewhere else, right? And what I learned really is that it's simply pride and running, right? And
Well, when you say pride, I want us to break it down, because in my programs in Jessica Cares, we use the peel the onion method. And it's like you got to get to the root. So when we're talking about pride, I want that to be clear for some people who may not even understand that that's maybe what they're going through. So we know we have that experience with the women, but when it comes to the men, you said there's pride and fear. So if we were to break down the pride aspect of it as to why they are staying away from their daughters, contributing then to their daughters not having that positive contribution in their life, what does that pride look like? Where is that pride? What is that pride about?
You feel like a failure. The man feels like a failure. When a man loses his family, he feels like a failure, right? He has to learn that he doesn't control it all, right? And sometimes you losing your family is not even within your control, right? So the pride comes from still this idea that you could control it in the first place. That's actually the root of it, right? Whereas you don't own her, you don't even own your daughter. All of them are loans to you. You don't own your ex-wife, because a lot of times it's connected to the ex who has the child more than it is the actual child, right? But you don't own any of them, and it was actually you get rid of that by understanding or accepting that it was the qadr of Allah that it happened that way, even whether it was your fault or not your fault. Allah decreed it, right? And therefore there's some good in that, in Allah's decree, no matter the pain.
You see it in the moment, right?
Right. But what happens is that when you put all that stuff on yourself and you make it about you, right? Because too often we make it all about us. It's all about me, right? I'm either going to blame myself too much or I'm going to blame the other person too much. And either one of them is going to cause me to run.
And that child loses.
And the child is the one who loses at all. It ends up being a selfish thing, because it's all about me. You know, this is where it's important to make it more about Allah. Because when you realize that, some of the stuff you realize, okay, it's not within my control. But what I can do is make up for what happened yesterday. Right.
And I can still do the good that I can do today, which is be present in my daughter's life and contribute to her upbringing, that although me and mom are not together, that does not negate the fact that I have a responsibility to you and I'm here no matter what.
And even if you failed yesterday, you're breathing today. You don't have to fail today.
Exactly.
And if you fail today, if you're breathing tomorrow, you're breathing again. And that's Allah's opportunity. Stop being ungrateful for the new opportunity to be something different. Don't let your pride get in the way of that, right? Because you can redeem. And really, all of us have to, at some point, in some way in our lives, be better than we were yesterday. It just happens to be this is your category. So don't allow that pride, right, to lead you, because it'll, like Ayoob said, it's that cost you'll pay for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And you said for generations, and we see that. It's not just, it doesn't stop with that child, and that generation is passed on to, and we're talking about lineage. You know, your lineage is damaged because of what you were talking about, pride. And then you mentioned something else, and Ayoob, please chime in. You was talking about the fear factor, that sometimes men have a fear. What is the fear of? So we know the pride comes from this feeling of failing, and then it becomes all about them. But then you mentioned a fear factor that comes, and that keeps them away from also contributing to their children's life. What is the fear about?
I'm not enough. I'm not effective. I'm not enough. Or, you know, she doesn't like me. I don't know if she likes me the way, you know what I'm saying? Even your child. Another thing that makes you run.
Really? Wow. And see, now I'm learning, because men and women think differently. So when you feel like a man is not, and here goes to the next point. I'm a woman. I'm grown on my own, and just listening to you, I'm like, wow, I never knew that. So imagine a teenage daughter who hasn't fully developed completely yet, has the loss of her father, doesn't understand that her father is suffering with pride and fear and all of these things. How does she internalize that? So that's what I want to ask. What are some of the effects that you've seen negatively, brothers, in young girls who, just to what you said, they don't understand what's happening. All they know is that my father is no longer here. I don't
Yeah.
see him. I don't talk to him. Yeah, Ayoob.
Yeah, it's a child's perspective is very skewed.
Mhm.
I mean, something could be red and they say it's blue, and they believe wholeheartedly in their mind that that's blue, and you can't tell them nothing different, right? And so what that absence looks like is them seeking validation from other men. And I mean, we got a problem now where it could be other women
Oh
in
yeah.
society. And so we have to really, really be mindful and intentional about understanding the importance of that male and female relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my advice for a woman in that type of situation that has a man who is absent is try to find some type of positive male influence for that daughter to look to, not a husband, you know what I mean, just depending on the age, but somebody that they can kind of seek and confide in, a wali, you know what I mean? And that's the
And for
important.
some, because we have some non-Muslims that follow the show. So when we use words like wali, what is a wali for someone who's maybe.
So a wali is a male that will look out for the best interest of a female in pursuing a potential mate, and being able to give them guidance in life, and give them that support that women need from a male, just like men need women, women need men,
Mhm.
it's not that women need men more. It's not that men need women more. We both need each other,
Right.
And so having that kind of role model, it could be an uncle, it could be a grandfather, it could be, you know, uh, I would say somebody who isn't marriage, they're not able to marry. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Because
Because
that skews things. Because somebody go, as the kids say, somebody gonna catch feelings.
big time, big time. And
Right,
so,
right.
but that's just my small perception, perspective view of it. You know what I mean? I haven't had to deal with it myself, but
Mhm.
it's it's very detrimental, man, for women to not have a male figure in their life, because
And
when they get something that might be fitting for them to be a companion for them, they don't even know how to spot it.
what even to look for. And like you mentioned before, that was one of you, I can't remember. It's you set the standard. So if they don't have a standard, they don't know what is good, what isn't good. They don't know what that looks like. Is this a positive thing? Is this a negative thing? Is this traumatic? Is this controlling? They don't know. They don't know the difference, So and I think what you said, Ayoob, is so important, because I remember even me raising my three children by myself. I saw my parents growing up. My parents were together, and even though they divorced, after 20 plus years of being together, they still had this connection as it related to me when I was raising my kids. When we went out, my parents were always around, to the point where my children at the age of 11, 8, and 6 still thought my parents were married, because they were always around and they didn't see fighting and arguing. So and I said all that to say, sometimes women, because they want that I wouldn't say fairy tale, but they want what what was decreed to have a man and a woman in the home raising children. They want that so bad that they negate the fact that they have surrogate fathers in their life that, as you mentioned, not husband material, so to speak, but there is that uncle who can be around and be a positive role model. There is that older brother. There is that grandfather who's active in their life, who can play that role. And if we would just kind of pull them in a little bit more, although the absence of the father will still be there, it can still kind of fill some of that void to having a healthy, young lady being raised. And I think we're looking for that husband, father, and because it doesn't always happen that way, again, the child loses out because they have all of these father figures around, but no one knows that they're needed in that capacity, and so they don't show up. So that is that. I just want to read some of the statistics that I was researching, talking about this particular topic. And it says some of the negative effects that come from not having a father, a positive father, because having a father doesn't always necessarily mean it's positive in the home, but a positive male role model, whether it be the father, grandfather, uncle, older brother. Here are some of the negative effects. One of them was saying low self-esteem. And it goes to what we were just talking about, because they don't understand the pride that you were talking about, Khalil. They don't understand the fear factor that my father, feels like he failed and everything. They blame themselves, and so they deem themselves unworthy. Because I'm so unworthy, my father had to leave. And so it causes low self-esteem. They struggle to maintain and build healthy relationships. They have rejection issues or abandonment issues. So they, as you mentioned, Ayoob, they practice promiscuity, looking for attention in a man, but not necessarily a wholesome relationship, because it still keeps a distance because of their abandonment issues. It's eating disorders. And this is what I thought was so, they call it father hunger. So they replace food with the hunger of their father. And it's because they have a deep emptiness and insecurity. So they actually they think that if they look a certain way, they can earn their father's affection. I was like, and they actually, psychologists have dubbed it father hunger. I was floored with that. Prone to depression, behavioral issues, and we see this. I work in a women's prison. They're saying that the women are more combative and more violent in the prison system than the men, and a lot of them has to deal with not having the fathers in their life. They're very angry. They're very angry, and so they develop these behavioral, being argumentative, being very combative, and then they have a lot of attachment trauma, anxiety, wanting constant reassurance. And then the other one is fearful avoidant, which is where they gravitate, because that's all they know is dysfunction. They gravitate to dysfunctional relationships, although they long for a healthy one.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share this, because for those that are listening, if you're not in your children's life, 9 times out of 10, this is what your daughter is dealing with. Whether she's voicing it or not, this is what she's dealing with. So I wanted to ask you, both of you, because we're talking about the negativity. What are some of the effects that you have seen? Because we all know, I see you, brothers, and I admire the way you are as fathers, and I've seen the positivity in your daughters. I mean, you have 3 daughters who are entrepreneurs. Khalil, you have a daughter who's how old and in college?
Yeah, 14. She just turned 14.
14 and in college. So this is just a glimpse for for the viewers that are watching. This is the effect of positivity, a positive role model in their life. And you mentioned you being very intentional. What are some of and all of you know positive men who are raising healthy daughters. What do you see, aside from just your own experience? What are some of the other positive effects that you have seen in other healthy young ladies because of the presence of their father being a positive role model?
In short, man, just watching them grow into what they're supposed to be. Like it's like planting a seed. You can't dictate what that really is going to look like. So your job is to water it, make sure the soil's good, you know what I mean, and let it grow to its full potential. That's my responsibility in my household, is just making sure their environment is one to where they can cultivate and grow until their best selves, you know. And along the way, sometimes you got to put up a stake to hold that, you know, hold that tomato plant up, you know, so it don't fall over and grow on the ground. You know, sometimes you got to put a gate around it so that the rodents won't get to it, you know. And,
Right. Right.
you know, you have to do work
Yeah.
in that, you know what I mean? But that work is going to give you that fruit that, again, will produce seeds that can continue to grow more fruit. And, you know, you just got to, I got a farmer's mentality, you know, I got to go out there and pull roots. And so
Yeah.
when I see that they're not responding to something in a positive manner, I have to actively work on changing that, whether that's, you know,
Nurturing it.
correct, you know, and sometimes it's really changing, you know, because sometimes they will be exposed to something or an environment and you see them react in a way that isn't best suited for them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remove them from that environment,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And so the beauty in it is, again, seeing their full potential come into, you know, like Khalil got a daughter that's in college, that's just turned 14. So she's capable of understanding things at a level that most people aren't, right? To get to that level. And so we just have to continue to encourage that and cultivate that. And that's going to produce something that we don't even know. You know what I mean? And the other side of it is, like Khalil mentioned, is not feeling like you have the control.
Mm.
Like when a farmer plants a seed, I mean, it's all on the law. Like I can do what I can do, but sometimes when you plant seeds, they don't grow at all. You know what I mean? They don't, and that's the cutter of a lot. You know what I mean? And so me and my wife, we always just talk about we can do all these things and whatnot, and they can turn out to be something totally different than what, and we got to be okay with that and trust in the law that what we did was beneficial for them, and they chose otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Good point. Khalil, what have you seen? I mean, both of you. I see both of you. I mean, Ayoob, I was on a panel with your sister-in-law and friends with your brother here on Facebook, and I see the pictures. I see him active in his children's life. So I know you see that. And they say like-minded people surround themselves with the same type of people. So you and Khalil are very close friends. I know some of the friends that Khalil have as well. So what are some of the positive effects aside from, I mean, your daughter being in college at 14 and your three daughters being entrepreneurs? What are some of the other positive effects that you've seen being around other positive men and their daughters?
Yeah, I mean, character. Just, more important even in, I would even say the college stuff is the character, right?
Mm-hmm.
To see them make a decision they don't have to make, and a lot of it, I watch a lot. I do more watching. I sit there and watch, and I'm thankful to Allah, because as y'all alluded to earlier, as you learn more and more, you're like, man, I'm just an assistant, right? You know what I mean? Really, seriously. I mean,
I'm just watering it over here.
yeah, I'm just making sure. Okay, all right, are you walking this way? You veer here. All right, let me come right here and go move away. Okay, come right here and come right. But I'm not. I'm just nudging you, right? And nudging you and nudging you, because at the end of the day, I know you have to walk this life to Allah. At some point, you're gonna have to be alone in your faith, right? And so we're preparing you for that. We're preparing you constantly, actually, for us not to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right, really, that's really it. And when I see those, that the positive effects, again, is I see balance. I see balance. I see what I want to see often is I want to see both autonomy, like independent decision making ability, as well as respect. Both, right? Not either or, right? And making decisions. I mean, for me, it's gratifying to see them making decisions for the Lord when they
And
don't
you're not
come
around.
watching.
Mm.
Because I worry. Those are the things I worry about, right? I worry. I don't, and you don't always know. For me, I'm gonna tell you, I don't know. I'll be wondering, like, okay, was I effective? I ask Allah a lot. I pray to Allah. And you know what I'm saying? And like I said, and I do want to give, and I think it's important that I give credit also to their mother, especially you talking about the college thing. But maybe I help give her room to be able to do that, but she spearheaded that venture, right? And I
Right.
think again,
And I see Ayoub's wife, she's like the
yeah,
manager
right,
of your
right.
daughter's company. And yeah.
So sometimes again, it's understanding also who your wife is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And allowing her to use her talents to nurture them and not getting in the way. A lot of leadership is also just not getting in the way, right? And I think sometimes, especially with men, and I would say this to men, like, don't get so caught up in having to be the leader that you don't recognize the leadership qualities in the young women that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's really, again, it's nudging, but
Letting them grow, letting them share and have that ability to be able to talk. And it's so funny because
and I will say this because I'm a little bit happy. So I got a gig on. Actually have a gig. I do music and stuff like that. My daughter is the one who booked me. I mean, my older daughter. Because
wow.
she's some MSA, so she booked the older, not the young one, but the older one. She's like an MSA, so she booked me.
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
but she didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I'm sitting over here
She
like,
got dad's back. She got dad's back. I know that's right.
but more than anything, I give credit to Allah, right? I give credit because like Allah didn't have to bless us with this. So
Right.
like in order to be grateful, you gotta do right by them.
Yeah. And that is so powerful what you just said, because all of us are going to stand before our Lord and have to answer when he asks you, what did you do with your blessing?
Right.
He's talking about your lineage, your children, and it's not just that child that came from you, but as you were talking about, generations to come. So you two brought up something so beautiful, and it actually was one of the questions that I had, so I'll just ask it now. Both of you were talking about the differences between the mother and allowing her to do things in the way she nurtures, and the way the father is in the leadership and so forth. So I would love to ask you, why are fathers' way of disciplining or communicating, I should say, so important to the development of a healthy young lady? Because it is different from a mother.
For sure. I think that it goes back to that pride thing because we all make mistakes, you know what I mean? And so to be able to be a little softer in your discipline, especially with women, is going to teach them how to be soft in their discipline. You got to learn it from somewhere.
That's true.
You got to learn it from somewhere. And women are the nurturers. You know what I mean? Like they have to be soft. Like a hard woman, it's
hard. It's hard.
It's tough. You know what I mean? It's tough. And you want to be able to allow your children as well as, your spouse to be able to come to you and confide in you and things of that nature. And if you're hard, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're not. You're going to discipline them and they're going to listen. But when you really want to get to know them and understand what's going on with them, especially nowadays, because everything is secretive, everything is on technology. And if you're not, having to go back and check emails and passwords and all that kind of stuff, then you got to allow them to talk to you because you don't know what's going on in their life. You have no clue whatsoever. You know what I mean? And they'll be going around like nothing, everything's fine. And they could be getting the worst kind
all
of
kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so you gotta be soft, you know what I mean? Especially with girls, because again, you gotta teach them how to nurture. And you gotta be soft with boys too, but it's just a different level of softness, you know what I mean? Because we are the maintainers and the protectors. So there's a firmness that you have to teach boys, to be able to stand up for themselves and things of that nature. And so, yeah, with the girls, it's like I'm blessed, alhamdulillah, to have a wife that I have where she is very strong-minded, but as well as soft. You know what I mean? And so we have a good balance in our discipline, And
so what do you see as the differences, though? Ayoob, in the way she communicates and talks, and the way you communicate and discipline.
So the difference,
and it's not to say that anyone is wrong,
No,
but just the difference.
And it's an intentional approach, right? The difference is that I'm very firm and to the point off the rip. You know what I mean? Where she can kind of come in and be soft and talk. but she can be that too. And she gets to that point, they know they're in trouble. You know what I mean? If she gets up here, where dad is already, if I come to you, I'm gonna be up here, right? But if she gets up here, oh, you in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
He froze.
Yeah, he
Hey,
froze. Hopefully he'll come back. So Ayoob, contribute to what Khalil.
Yeah, I mean, I
Contribute.
think I like the contrast because I think it depends on the household, right? I think my role is actually the cool one. I'm the more laid back one, more kind of
Yeah.
yelling in this. If I see something going crazy, I'm gonna come calmly and be like, "Hey, come here. I'm gonna talk them down because I know how to talk my daughters down. So I'll talk them down. I'm gonna take a little bit longer amount of time to do what I need to do. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
sometimes I have to kind of, and I like the, the fiery nature, of my wife, but I have to be the opposite of that because she's fiery, right? I have to be the one.
And your daughters are mirroring that.
Yeah. So they have to kind of see that balance. They have to see that balance. So what that does for me is that I play the role of being the kind of, all right, let's calm down, let's chill. Let's chill. Let's work this out. Let's strat it. Let's stop. You know what I'm saying? And think for a second. You know what I mean? And that's
have that logical conversation versus
exactly.
emotional.
Yeah. And that's my role. But like Ayoob said, what happens is then it flips. Every once in a while, I might be the one. Just to switch it up just a little bit.
Right.
I might be the one to get out the gate real fast. It's a specific issue, but you pick everything is about picking your battles. Right, pick your battles with this stuff, and I think it's really important. Like no matter what, and for me again, I got to make sure that they know they can talk. They know they can talk without like fear of being killed. And when I'm talking about pun, I'm not talking about killed literally, but you know what I'm saying, with verbally, because what they say is not something I approve of.
That is so profound to being a healthy young lady because I had that in my father. And I remember there was one, I'm not going to go into detail, but there was a time where I was 13, right at that age where, you start liking boys and boys are liking you, your hormones are all over the place. And I remember, and my father was very much like Ayoob, cool dad, but very strict. My dad was a no nonsense kind of guy. And I remember there was something that happened. I was 13 and I was so afraid to go, and I was looking for my mother, and my mother wasn't home. She had went somewhere, and I was just like, oh my God,
Oh snap! The whole thing went down. Am I the only one here now?
I'm here, but my camera isn't.
Ayoob, I think we lost the host.
I know, that's crazy. And we're still live.
Okay, all right.
Okay, now we're having all kind of issues, right? Ayoob, look what you're doing.
I don't know what happened to my camera. I don't know.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Alhamdulillah.
But I was just saying, I was afraid to go and speak to my father. And I remember my father could see that something was upsetting me. And he asked me what was wrong. And I remember I was just like, nothing. And he was like, I know you better than anyone. He was like, I know something is wrong. He was like, what's going on? He was like, you can talk to me. And I said that to him. I said, Dad, you're really strict. I was like, no, I can't talk to you right now about this. And I was like, you're going to be angry. And he was like, why don't you try me? And it was that what you were just talking about, that low, calm voice, that for that split second, I said, you know what, maybe I can talk to Daddy about it. And I was like, okay, I said, Papi, this happened and this and that. And he looked at me and I was just like, you look at me different, right? You feel, you see, and he was like, no. He was like, you're growing. He was like, you're learning. You're not always going to make the best decision. And he was like, but I want you to know that in those moments, you can come and talk to me and we can talk it through. And from that day on, it was just like, yo, that's my BFF right there. Like, I could tell him anything. Like, he's so calm, like my mother would have looked at me like, what? But my father, I just knew he was going to respond a certain way. And while he did discipline me as far as, letting me know where I went wrong, my decision making wasn't correct, he did it in a very loving way, though. And it made me, the discipline was more, I never want to disappoint him. And that was I'm not going to do that again, or I'm not going to do this again. It was always that thought of not. So having a father discipline is very different. So Ayoob, you can complete what you were saying, you know, how when your wife comes here and
right. And just to touch on what you were saying, you know, our children come from us, and so we don't want to disappoint them either. And so in those vulnerable moments, you have to check yourself because you want to be able to really listen and receive what it is that's going on with your children.
Yeah.
Especially your daughters. Because again, if you're hard and you get that opportunity for them to talk to you and you go off on them, they will never talk to you ever again.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Ever
You're
again.
absolutely right.
And so you have to be mindful of that when dealing with your daughters, especially because you don't fully understand, as the father, as the man, you don't fully understand what is going on with them.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I was literally just having that conversation with my daughter yesterday. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna tell you, I don't always understand what's going on with you, and you don't even have to tell me everything, right? I'm telling you, you got to tell me everything. Just know that, you know, when you need something out here. But listen, I know you got complex emotions and feelings that I don't understand, right? You know, and telling them at least that, right, so that they know that I don't have to understand everything. I don't have to know everything. Which I think, in a way, kind of makes it safer for them to actually come to you, because it's like
vulnerability.
Yeah, because you know how sometimes people pull rank. I know everything you've been through and all of that stuff, and I think that's bad because that's not actually true.
It's not.
It's actually not true.
And it doesn't validate your child's feelings, and that's part of raising a healthy child is validating their feelings. Is like I hear what you're saying. I may not have been through it before and fully understand, like you said. But I validate your feelings that these are hard times, that you're dealing with things that I didn't have to deal with when I was your age. You know, so I think it's so important that we give them that platform, as you brothers were saying, to be able to voice and not make them feel like it's not a safe place for them. And so I hear that's a key thing, is making them feel safe, and that you are allowing yourself to even be vulnerable with them, saying, I don't know everything, even though I'm dad and you look at me as the go-to. I don't know everything, and that I'm learning with you as well. I think that's absolutely beautiful.
And then
I will add one thing too. I think it's
okay. Khalil, and then Ayoob.
Okay. Yeah. One more thing with that, and this was one of the differences that actually, you know, I see occur, is that I think, especially as men, we don't react even when you have, because sometimes you do have the discipline. Don't react right away. Don't react, because that's probably going to be a much more emotional response, right? So even whatever happens, wait, compile your senses. If you have to wait a couple of days, right, then they won't associate their coming to you with you hurting them from coming to you. They'll associate your action or your discipline with their actual action they need to be disciplined for. Yeah. So don't react to them coming, because they'll actually confuse coming to you with the actual action. Won't even know that you were actually reacting to the thing you felt was wrong, because you're all confused and emotional.
Right.
That's the last thing. I just want to say that. Yeah.
And the other part about it is that we have to learn to apologize to our children.
Yes.
Come on now. You said that, Ayoob.
Because, you know, our idea of how somebody should behave and things of that nature is based on our perspective.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And how we were raised and the things that we took.
Our experience.
And I had to do this recently, where I had to apologize to my daughter, because I said there are certain things that you're not doing that I felt like at this age you should be able to do. And it's my job to recognize that that's based on my standards and my experiences. And so my job is to actively teach you these things until you actually get it. Right? Because a lot of times, you know, especially with the ages now, it's like when you get to 10, you're supposed to be able to do such and such. You know, when you get to 14, you're supposed to be able to do. But what did you actually teach them?
Right. And are you nurturing that? And everybody learns differently. So while yes, this other child maybe your way of learning is different. So I need to learn how to change my teaching style in order for you to grasp it better, right?
Yeah, and it helped in my growth as a parent to recognize that I got to take a step back. Not be so harsh about some things that are not being done, and take a different approach. And that's exactly what I told her. I said, I have to just take a different approach. I can't be up here with this. I just have to show you how to do it. And the other part is there are certain issues that before we confront them about them, me and my wife have a discussion. And we say, okay, is this a situation where I need to talk to them, or you need to talk to them, or both of us need to talk to them?
Love it. I love
You know
it.
what I mean? And so
This brings me to the last question that I want to ask each of you. Last week, Ayoob, your wife was talking about some of the things that you do with your daughters, specific, like very intentional things that you have thought to yourself that this is going to contribute to the uplifting of my child, their self-esteem, her identity, things that you specifically do. And I want you to share some of that. And Khalil, I know you do things as well, you know, with your daughters. And I would love, you know, intentional things. And this is what I think I'm really emphasizing the word intentional, because it's not a hit or miss. This is something that we consciously as fathers have to do with our daughters in order to develop healthy young ladies. So I would like for you to share, Khalil, share some of the things that you do, and then Ayoob, you can close with some of the beautiful things that your wife was sharing last week for those who didn't see the episode.
Okay. A couple of years ago, I implemented a family meeting, you know, where we would get together and actually, I would allow the girls to kind of air whatever their, you know, even grievances are, what's going on in the family. But we would also, we formatted a very specific way where we would talk about shukr first, what we appreciate, you know. We base it basically from an Islamic thing where a lot, you know, Shaitan talks about, when he talks about he's going to get us through us not being appreciative or grateful.
Grateful.
We always start with, what are you grateful for? Which I think also does something to your mood and does something to you and helps you before you get into the other things, right? So you start with what you're grateful for, you know what I'm saying? And we go into, what do I need to improve, right? What do I need to improve on a personal level?
Self-reflection.
So it's self-accountability and self-reflection. And then we go into, okay, now what's going on in the house? What's going on with you? What are you? And then we review an ayah of Quran. We have to have an ayah of Quran that we reflect upon, that they come and they give me their reflection. What did you think about this? I don't want to know what somebody told you. Tell me what you thought about this, which kind of helps them with their thinking of, you know, how they're actually implementing Islam into their lives. And I think that it was actually one of the game-changing things that happened. There's some things that me and their mother were seeing happen. We were like, we got to figure out something. One of the game-changing things that happened, once we started doing that, I saw, like, even my, you know, one of my daughters who doesn't open up, she started opening up more and everything. So it was amazing to kind of see that thing. And it's kind of what Ayoob said. It's kind of like, man, I need to do some more teaching, right? Because I can't do, maybe I'm doing too much expecting and not enough teaching and showing, right? Formatting and structuring for them so that they can actually, you know, see what this actually looks like. So so that was one thing. I think obviously taking them out, I mean, and this is where it's like, my daughters are very different in age. Everyone has a very different. So my youngest one, I do a lot of playing with her.
You mean that spunky? You mean that spunky one that I see all the time?
One, you know what I'm saying?
That one.
One of my friends, he calls his daughter Thanos. I'm gonna call her Thanos. Little Thanos. We got a little Thanos in the house, and she, you know, she run everything. But you know, I make sure she gets a lot of play, because she got so much energy. So I'm, you know, we run around. See, she's athletic. So I'm looking at their personalities and trying to. And actually giving what they need based on her personality. So I know she needs to play a lot. At this point, and in the next one, you know, she's, you know, the 14 in college. She was a woman and she was 11. You know, she was already a young woman, just an old soul type of thing. So I got to make sure that she is. I'm constantly checking on her. Hey, you know, are you okay? You know, that type of thing. And you know, the thing I shared with you before, because you know she's quiet. And I don't always know. So you know, sometimes I just gotta take her out and, hey, let's just talk. You know what I'm saying? And
me.
Right. And sometimes she don't say hardly anything, and then sometimes she says a lot, right? And then you know, the older one, we kind of like just friends, you know what I mean? So
could I share something? Remember you showed me a letter that your daughter had wrote to you?
Yeah.
That thing brought me to tears when you know, we were talking and you shared that with me. It was so beautiful. So just for the viewers, his daughter wrote him a letter, and it wasn't for his birthday. It wasn't because of some, you know, holiday. It was just, she felt it in her heart, and she decided to write you a letter, Khalil. And it was just thanking you and just being grateful, as you were saying, about the father, and being grateful that she had you as her father. And I thought that was just like amazing. That was Yeah, it's one of those moments, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Ayoob, what are some of the things that you do with your daughters? Your wife was talking about some of it a couple of weeks ago, but I would love for you to share, what have you thought of intentionally as a man in your contribution to your daughters and trying to raise them to be healthy young ladies? Oh, did he freeze again? Oh,
He's
oh,
there too.
huh?
You.
And I know, well, I'll share some of the things that his wife was
Okay.
mentioning.
Yeah.
And for those who are watching, and brothers, please, and mothers, encourage your husbands, that even if you're not with their fathers anymore, encourage them to do these things. Be open to them doing these things, because my father did it with me as well. And Ayub's wife was talking about how he has daddy-daughter dates, and how he specifically takes out his daughters. Sometimes they're all together, and sometimes he takes them out one-on-one because of those multiple personalities, and sometimes recognizing that I need to spend some one-on-one time with this one just to get to know her more, be able to give her a platform to speak without having the siblings around. And I remember my father used to do that. My father, I remember it was always Fridays because that was payday. And he would call my mom and tell her, get her dressed up when we're going out. And so he set that standard that going out. So when people say, "Oh, you're a dresser," I'm like, "Oh, y'all don't understand. I was dressing from I was little because my dad used to take me out." So,
awesome.
Going out on dates with my dad, and he would take me to nice restaurants, and he would take me to plays and shows, expanding my horizon just not the neighborhood that I was raised in, but different cultures, different music, different people, different foods, and I mean, just exposing me to so many different things. But it allowed us to be able to talk in those moments. And he would open up my car door. He would pull my chair out, and he set that standard for wanting to be a woman. And I just thought that and Ayub's wife said that he does that with his daughters, that he takes them out. He's very intentional about doing that, and I thought that was just wonderful. So I really am thankful.
Yeah, I got a chance to visit them too. I visited Ayoob. I wish he was here, but I
Yeah,
got a
me
chance to visit
too.
them recently because they actually read the book, the one of 99 Names books that I recently authored, and the daughters read it, and I just love their family. I love their family, man.
Me too.
You
Me
do.
too. I love those. Their whole family is just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So as we close this show, I mean, you guys have dropped some gems. We have some comments in here. The sandwich approach is grateful correction and then grateful reflection.
Yeah.
So it's oh, here's Ayub coming in to close. Hopefully he'll be able to get it to join.
Okay.
Nope, couldn't get him in.
Couldn't get him in.
Nope, couldn't get him in. But what I want to do in closing, because we've actually been here for a little over an hour, it just goes by so fast.
Yeah.
What would you say to fathers and mothers that are watching and understanding after seeing this show the importance of having a father in their child's life? What would you like to say, just as a closing of the show? Final remark.
I would say maybe the most important thing you can do to with respect to being a good mother or father is to work on yourself. Right. Work on yourself, right? Start with, listen, we all are work in progress. We all are, we created, Allah created us in a high mode, but we also have flaws. Be okay with the fact that you have flaws and work on them, because how you see yourself is going to be reflected in how you actually are with your children.
And how you speak to them.
And how you speak to them, and how they actually take you in, and how they receive you. How you yourself is going to be how they also receive you, and then they will look at you and then love themselves in a very similar way, right? And remember that you can be better tomorrow. And as Ayoob said, I wish he was here, but as he said, if you did something wrong and you did something wrong, get rid of that pride. That pride destroys every relationship, including
it really does.
children,
it really does.
Right? But apologize. If you're breathing, literally, you have the privilege of having the opportunity to actually make up for what happened yesterday. And guess what? Those who do, end up having a better relationship with their kids and their people who they do that with than the people who never have actually felt like they did anything wrong in the first place, because it's built on empathy and going through something.
And
right?
it's authenticity and transparency that builds healthiness, healthy relationships, because we all are not perfect.
Yes.
So I love it.
Never
I love
too late.
it.
It's never
Yeah.
too late to have a relationship with yourself first. And if you're having a hard time, start with self. And then slowly but surely, man, it's never too
Reach
late.
out. Thank you so much, Khalil, for dropping these gems that you dropped, and for Ayoob. I wish he could be on here.
Yeah. There you go. He's trying to
Hopefully he'll come
look like
back.
he's trying to come in again.
I'm
But
trying.
so
Test
Ayoob,
audio.
if you could just share final thoughts, because we can hear you although you can't see. Leave a comment, a final remark that you would like to leave for those. And I'm just going to step away for a brief second, but Ayoob, keep
Okay.
talking. I want to hear what you have to say.
To kind of, because I heard what Khalil said, to kind of echo what he said, man, you gotta work on yourself, man, and be self-aware of what you're doing, because it's gonna affect not only you but the people around you, and especially your children. It's gonna affect them tremendously, and so you got to be able to check yourself. When you aren't doing something that's in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing, you got to check yourself. And sometimes that takes apologizing, especially to your children, because they're so impressionable. And if you raise children to think that you perfect, man, that's
Yeah,
gonna do something crazy to them when they find out that, man, they ain't
that
perfect.
wasn't perfect. Right.
Yeah, they ain't perfect, and so you gotta be conscious of that, and
And that is
just
part of being healthy.
yeah, and just keep working. You know what I mean? Keep working, and make sure your intentions are good. That you trying to instill values in your children that can be beneficial for them when they become adults, so that they can benefit the society and their family that's going to keep going. I'm blessed to have a great grandfather who did some things that we still talk about him today.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so you want to be able to, when they think of your family lineage and the work that you do in community and stuff like that, you don't do it for the recognition, but you want to be able to leave a lasting mark on the
That's it.
people, for the people that's gonna come behind you. You know.
Powerful, powerful messages. I thank you both, Khalil, and I thank you both, Ayoob, for coming on the show and taking time away from your families who you invest so much into. I appreciate you, dropping these gems. For some men, I think some of the breakdown too is because they never saw what a healthy father looks like, and so sometimes it's just that not knowing how. And it's these type of narratives that allow for us. So we had a chaplain who asked the question, the last time we was on the show, and his question was, asking about the differences between a mother and a father relationship with the daughter, and what are some specific things that you can do. And so hearing these type of conversations, it answers those questions for those that don't have the answer. And what I would encourage, just in leaving as a final thought, it's okay to say you don't know. There's no shame in that. But the
Hmm.
shame comes in when you don't do anything about it.
Hmm.
You want to do more and you want to be more for your daughters, but you don't do anything out of pride. Don't be selfish in that, because it's not you that's gonna suffer. It's more so it's gonna be them. And I just shared just a glimpse of some of the negative impacts that it has on our daughters. Surround yourself, brothers. If you don't have, you got 9 homeboys, friends, or whatever you call them, that's not with their daughters, you're the 10th person and the 11th person that's not going to be around their daughters and doing anything for them. Surround yourself with those that are doing positive things in their daughter's life and their children's life, and learn from them. Observe, watch, see what they do, and become a student of being a good father to your daughters. And so that's what I would like to leave on this show. Again, thank you, Khalil. Thank you, Ayoob, and continue. May Allah bless you for being the great fathers that you are to your daughters, and having daughters that one day will have their own children, God willing, and they will impart those healthy lessons that you taught them, and your next generation of, your family will be just as healthy. So thank you, and may Allah reward and preserve you all. And for those watching the show, thank you for tuning in. I hope you found benefit in it. And that, again, this is what our show is all about. Our mission is to educate the women of our communities and the girls that they're raising. But we do have our husbands and our fathers that tune in on the show, and it's all beneficial. So I thank you for tuning in. If you chimed in on the show kind of midway, you can always watch the replay. We are taping live right now, but you can always go to our YouTube channel under Asiya Nasir Shahid. Click the subscribe button so that way you can watch all of our shows, and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. So stay tuned. In 2 weeks, we'll be back with another great topic for us to be able to educate and learn and empower our communities. Thank you again, and I'll see you all in a couple of weeks. God willing.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Good
good
night.
side. Alhamdulillah.
Good night.
Appreciate it.